All right, gang, we are talking about Frederic Malle today, the House of Frederic Malle, which is now under Estee Lauder. I first discovered Frederic Malle in 2012 and bought a bottle of Portrait of a Lady. You can see here my first bottle of Portrait of a Lady. There's a little juice left in there. But today, I'm breaking down the entire house, 37 total fragrances under the House of Frederic Malle. Find out about all of the fragrances coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Sebastian, talking to you about the House of Frederic Malle. Do let me know when you first discovered this house. It's one of my favorite houses for sure. It has gone through some things lately. And of course, last year, Frederic Malle stepped down from his own house. So it's completely under Estee Lauder now, but they have launched some of the most amazing fragrances in the whole world. And Portrait of a Lady is definitely one of the best. It's a masterpiece. I consider it a masterpiece. That is my most recent bottle of Portrait of a Lady. This is my OG bottle that I bought from Barney's back in 2012. There's a little bit more juice in here, but this was not under Estee Lauder, I should say. I remember I took that bottle with me on one of my earlier trips to France, and I was in a very small town, and driving around, we were hungry, so we pulled over, and we sat next to an older couple, and I had just sprayed my fragrance on, and the couple was really curious as to what I was wearing, and they started speaking in French, and we're terrible in French, and so we started talking and speaking. And I said, it's Frederic Malle, it's Portrait of a Lady. Then I had to figure out a way to write it down for them because they didn't understand and all that good stuff. And it garners compliments. Portrait of a Lady is definitely one of the best fragrances created by Dominique Ropion. And I don't know exactly how many fragrances Dominique Ropion has here. At least 10. He's created several fragrances. And the brand launched in 2000. I've got a cheat sheet here with all the fragrances and the years, but the bottles definitely have the names of the perfumers on them. On this one here, it's Lipstick Rose. It's Ralph Schweiger. That's the only fragrance he's done. I think that's the only fragrance he's done for Frederic Malle. But they launched in 2000, and they had launched with 9 fragrances all at once. So I think it was the first time that a brand put the names of the perfumers on the bottles. I don't think it was done before that, at least what I've heard. Let's see here. We've got a lot of Dominique Ropions here. This is also a Dominique Ropion Geranium Pour Monsieur. We've got Maurice Roussel here, Dante Bra. I think he's created 3 fragrances for the House of Frederic Malle. Jean-Claude Elena. So some of the world's best perfumers are here. And of course, one of my favorite perfumers, Julien Rescanet for the Moon. I actually bought a bottle of a 50 ml bottle originally, and I wore through that all throughout the pandemic. Now I have the larger bottle. So let's get started with the House of Frederic Malle and talking to you about the fragrances. We're going to do this in chronological order. And so I don't know exactly the exact dates they were launched, but I've compiled the list by date. The year of release. And I'm just going to go over all the fragrances. And also, there's going to be some discontinuations, which I will let you know about, but they don't discontinue a lot of fragrances. And then also name changes. We've had some name changes. I don't have any of the hair, like the perfumes. I don't have any of the non-perfume perfumes because they have other, perfumes that they launch, but I don't have them here. These are the actual fragrances. And going through the databases, I noticed there's 37 total. So let's get started with the first fragrance, one of my favorites from the line. It's Musc Ravageur. So this has changed since the OG launch. I remember this being a lot more animalic. Under Estee Lauder, it has gotten sweeter and more gourmand. But it's definitely a really delicious musk. It doesn't have the funk that I like in a lot of musky fragrances, but I also love gourmands. So this has a lot of gourmand touches. So it's spicy, it's warm, It's sweet, and the musk is there, but they stripped away any of the animal. They've neutered it. they've stripped it completely away. You do have that presence of musk, but it's all spicy, warm, gourmand, gooey, syrupy musk. It's super delicious, don't get me wrong, but it's not like, let's say, the fragrance from Born to Stand Out called Filthy Musk, or Sado Naso from the house of Naso Mato. Those have funk under there. This one doesn't. It's completely stripped away. But if you like a sweet musk, leaning gourmand, spicy and aromatic, I think Maurice Roussel created an amazing fragrance. This is my favorite of his 3 fragrances. He did that. He did Dante Bra, and then also Uncut Gem, which unfortunately, I think it's a bit of a dud for me. I don't care for that fragrance. But let me know if you're a fan of Musc Ravageur. What are your thoughts about it? Did you wear this pre-Estee Lauder? So if they launched in 2000 with 9 fragrances, I believe their deal with Estee Lauder happened around 2015. And so 15 years later, they signed a deal with Estee Lauder. And around that time, Estee Lauder took on not only Frederic Malle, but also by Kilian and also Le Labo. So all 3 of those brands Estee Lauder took on. And I think it was the first time a big beauty conglomerate like Estee Lauder took on a niche perfume house. Up until then, they were revered as one of the best niche houses. And I still consider them pretty awesome. They still launch really great fragrances, but what was niche at one time are more like mass niche now, because at the department stores, you'll see all the Frederic Malle fragrances. And previous to the Estee Lauder deal, they were only in like, Barney's or very small boutiques. Now, since they're under Estee Lauder, they're just everywhere. So it becomes more mass rather than something exclusive. But I do think that Musc Ravageur is a great creation for the house of Frederic Malle. Let's move on to the next fragrance from one of my favorite female perfumers. This also launched in 2000. This is En Passant by the perfumer Olivia Jacobetti. If you don't know much about her, she's known for 2 fragrances that focus on figs. And I can't remember which one. I have a video on the channel comparing both Philosophes from Diptyque and Premier Figuier from the house of L'Artisan. I believe L'Artisan came before the Diptyque. I could be wrong. I've forgotten. It's been a while. But if you're curious to learn about those 2 fragrances, it's created by Olivia Jacobetti. And she created both of them 1 year apart from one another. And maybe she copied herself, which perfumers tend to do. But this one, En Passant, is a gorgeous lilac fragrance. And lilac is not a very popular floral note. A lot of people associate it with grandma, which is, I actually love the smell of lilacs, especially on a tree or at a florist, or, you purchase the branches because it's like a really big tree. And so when you get them from the florist, they're like branches, like very thin branches, and you put them in a vase. And the fragrance of lilacs are amazing. Here it's very fresh and also almondy. The lilac flower has an almondy effect, and I believe the lilac is a fantasy note. I know for sure. So they have to utilize other notes to create the smell of lilac. So it's an accord. But to me, it's definitely one of the best floral notes for me. I absolutely love it. And I think Olivia Jacobetti did a really great fragrance here. En Passant is awesome. She's not doing much, but like within the last couple of years, she did launch a collection of 4 or 5 fragrances that are cheap for Zara. They were the musky clean fragrances. I don't know if you guys got a chance to try those. There were a few that were really great. I have a video on the channel of those fragrances. And, she does fragrances here and there, but I think she's kind of pretty relaxed. One more thing about the perfumer Olivia Jacobetti. There was a perfume shop in Paris that was attached to the Hotel Coste, And it was a brand of fragrances that she had created all the fragrances for, called Yunx, IUNX. And there were some really great fragrances there. I don't know what happened to that brand, but either way, let's move on to the next fragrance. The third fragrance is Iris Poudre, or Iris Poudre. This is created by Pierre Bourdon. Of course, you guys know who that is, right? Pierre Bourdon. Didn't he create Kouros? This is an iris that's powdery, but it's a bit green and vegetal. There's not a lot of sweetness here. It's a bit more raw and it's a bit more earthy. And it's utilizing, you know, that iris is not the flower they use, it's the roots. It's a very expensive process. It takes years. It's like potatoes in a field, because it's the roots, obviously. So it not only it takes a while, but you have to pick them, or, you know, cultivate them and then dry them and all that good stuff. This to me smells like the earth, but there is a butteriness here for sure, because it's called orris butter, and that's what they make with. I don't know the process personally, but to me it smells of the earth, but buttery and vegetal, which is a perfect fragrance. If you like these kind of non-sweet fragrances, I mean, I'm not saying it's completely savory, because there's some sweetness here, but it's more vegetal and less sweet than full-on sweet, powdery, like something like Dior Parfum or something. But a great fragrance by a great perfumer. I think Pierre Bourdon has a few fragrances here. Of course, probably the most popular one is French Lover. We'll get to that. We're doing this in chronological order, but the Iris Poudre is quite nice, especially if you like something vegetal. I almost feel like there's Angelica in there as well, because I know there's Angelica in the French Lover. It's Galbanum and Angelica, but I'm not 100% sure if there is for sure. The next fragrance, and it's the fourth fragrance, it's Lipstick Rose. So a great name for a fragrance. Great perfumer Ralph Schweiger. I believe he works for Men, the firm of Men. I think that's where he works. I met him once 3 years ago at a perfume event. And I think it's definitely one of the more popular offerings from Frederic Malle, Lipstick Rose, because, you know, it's violety, it's irisy and rosy, and it smells like lipstick is basically what's going on here. So I think violets and iris and rose together creates a makeup effect. It's powdery. It's also a bit sweet and lightly fruity. And you definitely get the reminder of lipstick here. I don't know. I don't use makeup, obviously. But when I was young, I remember smelling these kind of smells with my mom's makeup and lipsticks. But I don't know if that's how, you know, makeup and lipsticks smell these days. But it gives me the reminder. There's a dryness and a sweet syrupiness as well, but sweet, kind of slightly fruity, but for sure lots of rose. And I believe there's violet. It's got to be a violet in here, and of course iris, because it's quite powdery. Definitely solid if you like the idea of lipstick, rosy and powdery. Try that. Ralph Schweiger's Lipstick Rose. I believe that's the only fragrance that he's created for Frederic Malle. The next fragrance is Michel Rudnitska's Noir Épices. So there's a fragrance here called, let's see if I can find it. So it's father and son. If you guys don't know Edmond Rudnitska, he did Le Parfum de Thérèse, and Michel Rudnitska is Noir Épices. So we'll get to the Le Parfum de Thérèse. I'll let you know about Michel Rudnitska. He's a famous classic perfumer, did a lot of Dior fragrances. Noir Épices, to me, it's almost like when I smell it, it gives me the reminder of orange, a big orange with a bunch of cloves stuck on it. Because it's quite orangey to me and also very spicy. It reminds me of holidays. Of course, there's other things going on in here. So this is lots of spices. There's an ambery effect. There's a citrusy effect. It's warm. It's spicy. Just giving me the idea of the holidays for sure. But it's quite gorgeous. It's not one of the most popular from the house, I don't think. And I don't know how much Michel Rudnitska has done as far as perfumes go. I know his father's, I think it's father and son. Maybe I'm wrong with that, but I believe it's father and son. I think Edmond Rudnitska is the more popular perfumer. I haven't seen the work of Michel Rudnitska's fragrances much, if at all. I think this is the only fragrance I know by Michel Rudnitska. And let me know if you're a fan of the fragrances I've spoken about so far. Let me know if you're a fan of this house. This is the first time you're discovering this house. Add a comment below. But let's move on to a Jean-Claude Ylena creation. I think this is around the time he was at Hermes. I could be wrong. I'm not 100% sure when Jean-Claude Ylena got the gig at Hermes. But prior to this is 2000. And I believe in 97, he created a declaration for Cartier. So was he working at Cartier? I can't remember exactly. But Angelique sous la pluie, I think that's how you say it. Angelique sous la pluie, it's a long name. I don't know what it really means. If you're French or you know French and can translate it, let us know. But I do know the word Angelique is in there, and it's Angelica. One of my favorite fragrances with Angelica is Angelique Noir from Guerlain. And I love that whole green vegetal, musky, powdery note of Angelica combined with vanilla. It's a magical fragrance. Here, once again, it's quite powdery and it's musky and also a bit vegetal as well. There's spice in there. It's a cold fragrance. It's also austere. I get that kind of a presence. It's just like ice cold. There's not much warmth here. And I think the Angelica provides that kind of coldness. I don't consider it a fragrance I hate. To me, it's not very inviting because it's cold. There's definitely very vegetal touches. It's quite powdery and musky. And it's slightly green as well. I don't get green too much with Angelica as much as I get green with Galbanum. But there's a slight greenness here as well, creating a kind of a coldness. But I think it's pretty solid. Angelique sous la pluie, that's from perfumer Jean-Claude Ylena. Jean-Claude Ylena has done several fragrances for the house. We'll get to all of them one by one. But next, we've got a fragrance by perfumer Edward Fleischer, one of my favorite fragrances from this house. It's Le Mediterranee. So we're still in the year 2000. We've got this plus two more coming. The reason this was not a love at first sniff, it grew on me. Later, it reminds me of Easter lilies because I grew up Christian Orthodox and lilies were very prominent during the Easter months. And lilies smell amazing, actually. These do remind me of Easter lilies, but there's a spice in there. And I almost get like a clovey spice from the mix. But Le Mediterranee, basically Mediterranean lily, is the idea of a sea breeze with the lilies. It's such a great fragrance, guys. If you like the floral idea of a fragrance and you like the idea of there's a spice in here that it just gives me kind of a clovey spice, almost like carnation, because carnation and cloves do have a similar smell. But definitely one of my all-time favorites from the house. If I was going to rank, which I'm not doing that here today, this would be a top 5 for sure. I absolutely love it. Although there's so many great fragrances in this house, it might be a bit challenging, but it's a great house. One of my favorite houses. Even though it's under Estée Lauder, I still consider it one of the best mass market niche houses. But let's move on to, I think this is the first Dominique Ropillon creation. Yeah? This is Un Fleur de Cassis. So I believe it's the flower cassis, which I think is a bit like mimosa flower. I think that's what it is. Correct me if I'm wrong, because this to me smells like mimosa flower. This isn't the strongest Dominique Ropillon creation for Frederic Malle. There's also boozy fruitiness here, a bit tropical, lots of powder for sure, but it's not that dry, even though it's powdery. There's definitely a very vintage feel with this fragrance. It just screams vintage. And a lot of these fragrances can be a bit vintage, but I think the most vintage is the next one I'm going to talk about, Le Parfum de Thérèse. But this to me smells like it could be in a bottle from the 80s. I like its fruitiness, its powderiness, ambery qualities. I think it's something that Dominique Ropion did a good job creating this fragrance, but it's not like my all-time favorite from him. But if I think about a vintage fragrance or a more modern offering, although that's from 2000, I consider Frederic Malle more of a modern house. If I want something of vintage-esque, I would look into this fragrance. So if you have worn Un Fleur de Cassis, let me know what your thoughts are on it. Add a comment below. But let's move on to Le Parfum de Thérèse. So this is Edmond Rudnitska. Edmond Rudnitska created, I believe he created Eau Sauvage. He created Moustache, the OG, for Rocha. He created Diorissimo. I don't know the exact story here, but I believe Frederic Malle was friends with Edmond Rudnitska, and this was a fragrance created for Dior, but it was never really released. Is that true? I might be stretching the truth about it, but it's something similar to this. And it was released here because it wasn't, wanted at Dior, obviously. But I believe that the wife of Edmond Rudnitska was involved, and probably this was created in the 60s or 50s. And it does have a very vintage feel about it. To me, there's a series of Dior fragrances. There's Diorama, there's Diorella, Dioressence, Diorissimo. One of those reminds me of this, but like a flanker of it, not identical. So I could see this fitting in that collection. My favorite is Diorissimo. Oh my God, I love it for the Lily of the Valley. But this, to me, it's either Diorella or Diorama. It reminds me one of those two. By the way, if you want to find out more about those fragrances, there's a video on the channel with Dahlia as well, going over the 4 fragrances, Diorissimo, Dioressence, Diorama, Diorella. I think those ones. Go catch that video. But this reminds me of one of those fragrances. It's spicy and very vintage, very, very old school smelling. But, it smells pretty darn good if you are into those vintage kind of styles. Even though this came out in 2000, I believe the actual recipe or the formula was from decades prior. Okay, so next we've gone back to Jean-Claude Ellena, and this is 2001 now. In 2001, they only launched one fragrance. This is Cologne Bigarade. Now, if you caught my video last week, the haul video, I discussed Cologne Bigarade, and I also discussed Cologne Bigarade Concentree. I don't know why I'm getting mixed up. Cologne Bigarade is one that I've had for a long time. I never owned Bigarade Concentree. And it reminded me Eau d'Orange Verte a little bit from the house of Hermes. And Hermes, Jean-Claude Ellena was at Hermes. Was he inspired by that fragrance for this? And also Bigarade Concentree. And also the fragrance Eau Très Fraîche, Terre de Hermes Eau Très Fraîche, because they're all very similar. But this is a fresher take on Bigarade Concentree. It's Cologne Bigarade. So they came out with this in 2001, and in 2002 they came out with Bigarade Concentree. And Hermes came out with Eau Très Fraîche in 2015. So, wait, was it 2015? Somewhere like 2013, maybe 2011, somewhere around there is when that came out. And once again, a perfumer copies his own work to create a more mass market offering. But this is very, very fresh. It's lighter, it's waterier. It's the bitter orange. There's a spiciness about it. The spice is a bit cumin-like, but I think my bottle has turned, sadly. It's a bit off. It's a very light fragrance. Oh well. I now have Bigarade Concentree, which I do enjoy a little more. But let's move on to the second Dominique Ropion creation, launched in 2002. So as I said, Cologne Bigarade was launched in 2001 after they launched with 9 fragrances in 2000. So in 2002, they launched 2 fragrances, one by Dominique Ropion called Vetiver Extraordinaire, and then they launched the Bigarade Concentree. So this is considered as one of the best vetiver fragrances. I don't know if I really consider that. I think it's a really solid vetiver fragrance, but there are others that I consider just as good, if not better. But if you're a vetiver lover, then this is something you should get your nose on, because different fragrances speak to different people in different ways. So you might not like Guerlain's vetiver and go, this is amazing. Or there's different companies sell the vetiver, which is back, by the way. Sell the vetiver is back. I think it was discontinued for a while. This to me is very earthy. It's grassy. It's for sure woody. And there's spices along the way. And it's no warmth. It's deep. It's quite woody and grassy, slightly green, but there's not a lot of warmth under there. There might be some light, warm spices under there, but it's basically vetiver in your face. If you like Guerlain vetiver, you might like this one. So check it out. But I've smelled better. Like for me, if I want vetiver, I think in Incident Diplomatique by Jovoy, which is vetiver and patchouli, I love that combo. I think is even better than this. It's also super sexier. This is someone that just, it's a bit more simple. Even though it's deep, it's a bit more simple, I think. Because in the end, it's vetiver and not a lot going on with it. I mean, there's things happening for sure, but I prefer something a little more exciting like Incident Diplomatique. But I think some people are more simple and they would enjoy something like this. Vetiver Extraordinaire. Let me know if you're a fan of that. Add a comment below. Let's move on to the Bigarade Concentree. And I just bought this, and you saw it in the haul video last week. Finally have it. It's so good. It's a great citrus fragrance. I can't believe I waited this long. This is awesome stuff. And the reason I bought this is because I wanted to do this video on the House of Frederic Malle. Every fragrance launched. Again, NOIR perfumes or limited edition perfumes, because they've relaunched these fragrances in different bottles. Of course, this year they launched for the 15th anniversary of the Portrait of a Lady, a red bottle. I did not buy it. I almost did in Paris, but I didn't. How many bottles of Portrait of a Lady? I mean, I'm a collector. I probably should have bought it, but there were other things I was interested in more. So they have limited edition bottles and things like that, which I'm not featuring here, but it's 37 total Frederic Malle fragrances, and right now we're talking about the second fragrance, or one of two fragrances launched in 2002. This is Bigarade Concentree. Lovely. Again, to me, there is a little bit of a hint of Eau d'Orange Vert from Hermès. But what I love about this is the juiciness. It's so juicy, like the juice and spice together. There's a zing and bitterness. It's bitter orange, Bigarade Concentree. Bigarade is bitter orange, basically. And what I like about this and the Cologne Bigarade, and also Eau Très Fraîche from Terre de Hermès, there's that spice of cumin spice-like effect happening, and it adds a sexy layer to the citrus, mostly citrus fragrance here. There's a bit of a watery effect happening in here as well, which I quite find to be refreshing. And so definitely really glad to have this in my collection. I will really be putting this to use because I love how delicious it is. I love that it reminds me a little bit of Eau d'Orange Vert, which I'm a big fan of by Hermès. And again, makes me wonder if Jean-Claude Ellena was inspired by that fragrance. So if you have been watching my channel and haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe to the channel by clicking the subscribe button. And also click that bell icon so you'll be notified for future videos. And of course, please give a thumbs up for this video, and it'll help with the algorithm and all that good stuff. But let's move on to the year 2003, starting with L'Odive, another Jean-Claude Ellena offering. So 2002, he launched Bigarade Concentree, or he created for Frederic Malle. And then in 2003, it's L'Odive. Really awesome fragrance, and I believe it focuses on heliotrope. It's quite powdery and slight nutty almondiness in there. It's an elegant fragrance, a bit vintage-esque once again. It's a bit vegetal as well. I get that kind of slight vegetal quality because of the ingredients they're using in here. It's also not so sweet, For someone that likes some light almondy effect, but not going full-on gourmand, this might be appropriate for, because I know a few people that don't like sweet fragrances, but they like the heliotrope and how it adds that kind of powdery, almondy, slight nutty sweetness. But even though I think this is targeted to men, I think this is targeted to men. I think ladies totally would enjoy it, especially for people that don't like sweet fragrances. And there is that kind of light reminder of the almonds here. But an awesome release, I think. I've used quite a bit of this one. L'Odive from the House of Jean-Claude Helena, the House of Frederic Malle, created by Jean-Claude Helena. Let me know if you're a fan of that one. Add a comment below. But let's move on to this next one, which initially it wasn't called this. This is Rose Tonnerre. Oh, I guess I was wrong. This is the second Edouard Fleischer fragrance. First it was the Le Mediterranee, and this is Rose Tonnerre, which originally was Une Rose. And I've got a signed Frederic Malle bottle. And you can see who Edouard Fleischer is right back here. Let's see if my bottle is signed as well, as you can see. So I met Frederic Malle 2 or 3 times here in San Francisco. And they always had a little, like a gathering at Barney's downstairs where they had like this little meeting room and things like that. So, but the first time I met Frederic Malle was on the street, and I think he was just in the neighborhood for the event, and I bumped into him, and I said, hello, big fan. I'll be at the event. We took a photo and all that good stuff. So I met him 2 or 3 times at Barney's when he used to come quite a bit. And I've got videos on the channel with him speaking about different fragrances as well. And that's how he signed my Une Rose. So now Une Rose is called Rose Tonnerre. Why did that happen? So apparently, since this fragrance is really big I think in China or in Asia, and there was some complication with the name, trademark, and things like that. So the name was changed. I much prefer Une Rose, but it is what it is. It's Rose Tonnerre. Has it been reformulated? There was some people speaking or commenting that there was changes. I mean, it mostly smells the same to me, but I guess my bottle of Une Rose is from so long ago. This bottle of Rose Tonnerre is from a couple years ago. So it's true, fragrances do mature, do age, do get concentrated. And this does seem a bit lighter and fainter compared to the thickness and the denseness of Une Rose. But, well, I mean, in 2 more years, if I keep this in perfect condition, which the studio is, air conditioned and temperature controlled, then I think it'll stay fine, and it should, macerate even further or maturate. But what is this fragrance all about? It's basically a gorgeous rose fragrance in your face, all rose, but there's also kind of other notes in here. I think there's some citruses, there's wine note in here, or wine leaves, I think. But to me, it really smells like authentic rose, because when you smell a rose off the bush, there's certain roses, there's a grassy smell to it, and I'm getting that here. Grass, like a leafy, grassy kind of note or smell with the rose, and I'm getting that here, smelling it. But it's got a jammy quality, and also fresh at the same time. So it's a really great fragrance, and because it was so popular and they didn't want to kill the fragrance, I don't think they would do that, but they wanted to sell it, so they decided to change the name, which I can see if they have a challenge with trademarks and things like that. I think it happens quite a bit in the perfume industry. Sadly, it does. But next, moving on to Carnal Flower. So we're going from 2003 all the way to 2005. No fragrances were launched in 2004, according to my research. Maybe there was one, but I don't think I'm missing any fragrances here. Oh, my phone was ringing. So Dominique Ropion created Carnal Flower, and I don't know what's going on with my bottle here. It's the label. But I think this is also considered one of the popular fragrances from Frederic Malle. Also one of the best tuberose fragrances. And it's an interesting combination of notes. I think he created this around the same time he created Alien, whereas Alien for Mugler. Alien for Mugler is a jasmine focus. This is a tuberose focus. This also has coconut. It also has eucalyptus. And I believe the Alien is, I can't remember the notes for that one, unfortunately, now. But I do consider Carnal Flower to be quite gorgeous. And I've been saying, this to me, there's a spice in there. Once again, just like the Lys Mediterranee or Lee Mediterranee, giving me like a carnation clove-like vibe. But I feel like it's created from the eucalyptus note in here. I think this is a very modern, even for today, even though it was launched, 20 years ago, it's a very modern take on tuberose. I mean, there's tuberose fragrances I smell, and I'm going, that's so vintage smelling. Even today, they launch tuberose fragrances. It always takes me back to Fracas. Here, there's a freshness about it, and there's a modernity about it. And I think when I started enjoying and appreciating tuberose, it was this. But as soon as I go back to other tuberose fragrances, if it's all in-your-face tuberose, it's not one of my favorite notes. But here, I think it's so, so good. I like that kind of reminder of something spicy in there, but it's very, very creamy. And the fact that they have coconut, it makes it even creamier. So after Carnal Flower, we have, where is it? Did I miss it? Nope, right here. So we have French Lover. And as you can see, I've worn quite a bit of French Lover. I've gotten bored of this fragrance, unfortunately. It's another Pierre Bourdon creation. And this one is a spicy green fragrance. I believe it's Galbanum. And I believe there's Angelica in here as well. But it's quite classy. And it's, what was it called before? Because this was named something different before. Was it Bois d'Orage? Was that the name? I believe so. I'm not sure why French Lover was titled differently in the States, but towards the end of the 2010s, they brought French Lover here. So there was a time it wasn't called that. And again, it's a really solid offering. It's quite spicy. It's quite green. I also get like cedar in here, but definitely one of the best creations for the perfumer Pierre Bourdon. I think it's solid, but I've just gotten bored of it. It's not as exciting as other fragrances, unfortunately, but for me, a grab and go kind of fragrance, it's quite awesome. So that's French Lover. Next, we've got a fragrance called Outrageous, created by legendary perfumer Sophia Grossman. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of text here. All right, I did have to pause the video. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of an emergency happening behind the scenes, but I also looked up if it was Bois d'Orage, and it was, and I was right. It's Bois d'Orage. So when I first started buying Frederic Malle fragrances, in the USA, French Lover was called Bois d'Orage. But like I said, towards the end of the 2010s, they went back to using French Lover. Okay, so the next fragrance I'm going to talk to you about is Outrageous, created by Sophia Grossman. Now, I think this is the only fragrance created by her for this house, but she's a well-known perfumer. I believe she worked at IFF, and she's created a lot of different, classic fragrances from the 80s and 90s. So this is a fresh fragrance, and it's inspired by, I guess, I'm not 100% sure if it's inspired by Brazil, but there is a kind of a tropical, fresh, breezy experience here. And it's a bit, it's a bit fruity, I think, but it's tropical fruits, but kind of on the molecular side, wears very fresh, and it's fun and playful as well. And it's kind of an easy, breezy, fresh fragrance. And I keep forgetting about it for, fresh fragrance videos. But now that I'm smelling it again, I really quite like it. There's a slight bitterness in there, but it's also kind of candy sweet and also very musky and fruity and fresh. So let me know if you're familiar with Outrageous. Now, Outrageous was I believe, a limited edition, not a limited, exclusive fragrance for Barney's. I think that's what the deal was. And it came in a special bottle. And I had a bottle in the special bottle, but I ran out because I used quite a bit of it. And I think this is the only eau de toilette, or one of the only eau de toilette fragrances, as you can see, because most of the fragrances for this house are eau de parfum. So this was also selling for cheaper, but if you went to Barney's, you would have gotten a special bottle. But I think when the whole Barney's going out of business situation happened, they launched it in this bottle. At least that's what I was told at Barney's. It was only available at Barney's at the time. But I quite like that fragrance, and I just keep forgetting that it exists. But I'll start featuring it in videos and things like that. But let me know if you're a fan of Outrageous by Frederic Malle. And what are your thoughts on Sophia Grossman? Do you have a favorite fragrance of hers? I think she created a fragrance called Calyx for Clinique, once known as Prescriptives. I could be wrong, though. But something for Estee Lauder comes to mind. Calyx Prescriptives, Clinique is under Estee Lauder. But that's what I'm remembering. But she's created a ton of other fragrances. But this next fragrance is another Maurice Roussel fragrance. This is the second fragrance created by Maurice Roussel. We've got one more. This is Dante Bras. So this is a violet fragrance. You can smell the violets. It's quite powdery. And I believe it's musky as well. Does Maurice Roussel like musk? I get a lot of vegetal qualities here. It's also ozonic, so it's almost like they're using violet and also the violet leaves. Because even though it's quite powdery and floral and dense, there's a freshness surrounding it. So it's not my all-time favorite fragrance. I much prefer Musc Ravageur, but I prefer this over Uncut Gem. This also kind of reminds me of, this came out in 2008. Do you guys remember a fragrance for the House of Khitan? I believe it was created by, well, maybe it wasn't. I think it was Khitan Red, and then there was Khitan Black. I think both of those were created by Maurice Roussel. I could be wrong, though. But it does remind me a little bit of those fragrances as well. Just the DNA does. But that's Dante Bras. And I just thought about that, actually. I was actually looking for something violet forward, and I remember the Khitan Red and then Khitan Black. And I think the Khitan Black has Maurice Roussel listed, but not the red. But I'm not 100% sure he created Khitan Red. But if you guys are looking for Khitan Red, it's now available by Khitan exclusively in a more higher end collection, as the OG Khitan Red and Khitan Black have been discontinued. So next we're going to another fragrance created by Dominique Ropion. It's a Geranium pour Monsieur. So honestly, this is a lot of love for this fragrance, but it's one of my least favorite Frederic Malle fragrances. And generally, I love Geranium, but the mint in here is a lot of mint as well. And you know, with Geranium, you have not only minty nuances, but you also have rosy nuances. And there's a fragrance here that's also utilizing Geranium, but they're bringing out the rosiness. Here, it's so super toothpaste, mouthwash, minty that it's a bit of a turnoff for me. I wish it wasn't like that. It smells like mint candy. And yeah, I don't like it. I don't know why. So I grew up in a family of mint lovers. We love our mint. It's one of our favorite herbs. And this kind of turns me off, because I kind of want the realistic mint smell, and that's not what I'm getting here. It's just almost like, because I've never been a fan of consuming that taste or flavor of candied mint. I can't stand it. I don't even hardly like chocolate and mint together. And this gives me that idea a little bit. And so, because I love the flavor of mint so much, that this kind of smells fake and, you know, synthetic. But there's fans of this out there. Maybe you're a fan. Let me know if you're a fan of Geranium Pour Monsieur. Add a comment below. But that was launched in 2009. And then, of course, followed next year after that, the same perfumer, Dominique Ropion, created the masterpiece that is Portrait of a Lady. One of the best fragrances ever created. I think Frederic Malle will always be remembered for this fragrance. And I have hyped this fragrance so much. It's definitely one of my favorite fragrances. And it's a spicy, fruity, ambery, and smoky patchouli fragrance with rose. Don't forget the rose. When I bought this fragrance in 2012 in this box, Barney's used to put the price tag under the bottles. I don't know why, because the Frederic Malle fragrances were never cellophane wrapped. And it was the most expensive fragrance I had ever bought. The 50 ml in 2012 was around $250. It's quite pricey. And I was like, I went into Barney's to buy a bottle of Nasomato's Black Afghano because everybody was talking about it. And Portrait of a Lady was 2 years old at that time. It launched in 2010. I bought my bottle of Black Afghano in 2012. And I smelled that because people were smelling it. I was like, damn, that smells so good. That stuff is freaking awesome. Because it was loud, in your face, super delicious smelling. I said, I'm going to come back and get it. But at the time, I didn't have a budget for a lot of fragrances. And, you know, Black Afghano was already pretty expensive. I think it was around $150 at that time. So I saved some money and came back and bought Portrait of a Lady a couple weeks later. And been a big fan of it since then. Let me know if you're a fan of Portrait of a Lady. Why do you like it? Let me know if you're a hater of Portrait of a Lady. Why do you hate it? So we're moving on to the first discontinued fragrance. This launched in, let's see, 2013. So this came 3 years after Portrait of a Lady. Did they really wait 3 years to launch another fragrance? Was Portrait of a Lady that popular? But this is discontinued now. This is Dries Van Noten par Frederic Malle, as you can see right here. So this is discontinued. I believe it was discontinued because Dries Van Noten launched their own line of fragrances. This got discontinued towards the latter part of the 2010s. And I think Dries Van Noten fragrances came out in 2021. So this brand is under Estee Lauder. Dries Van Noten is under POUDRE. So I think for conflicts and things like that, they discontinued this fragrance. It's pretty sought after, I think. A lot of people love it. Hopefully they'll relaunch it. But I think since the relationship is dead, they probably killed the fragrance for that reason. But it's a sandalwood with vanilla. For me, this is one of the most medicinal sandalwood fragrances. It acts like it has a medicinal characteristic. But I love the way the sandalwood smells. It's almost like the sandalwood in something like Samsara from Guerlain. But it's a nice fusion of the creamy sandalwood and also the creamy vanilla. It creates a bit of a powdery effect, but it's super smooth and ambery in the base. Lots of woods. I think it's really, really great fragrance. But I definitely get that kind of bitter medicinal quality. Sometimes, for me, sandalwood creates that. And this is also nothing like Santal 33, thankfully, because Santal 33 is one of my most... Lately, I've been really hating it. Sometimes I enjoy it, but most of the time I hate it. So this sandalwood is super awesome compared to that sandalwood, but sadly, this is discontinued. Let me know if you have a bottle of this. Next, launched in 2014. So I guess one fragrance in 2013, and then we have two fragrances in So one fragrance in 2013, two fragrances in 2014, starting off with the Night. This is the Night, the very first Desert Gems collection fragrance. It's quite expensive nowadays. It was already pretty expensive when I got it. I'm only going to spray one. This is a pre-Estee Lauder bottle, by the way. So it's a bit shitty smelling, excuse my language. It's poopy, but it's the real thing. It's the real oud. This is also a perfect fragrance to layer with Portrait of a Lady. If you want Portrait of a Lady with an oud effect, because the night does have the note of rose, but it has a fecal quality about it. It's very animalic, but out of the Desert Gems, it's one of my favorites, although lately it's been the Moon. But if you want something animalic, you definitely go with this. And if you layer it with Portrait of a Lady, it kind of, blends beautifully because they're both created by Dominique Ropion. But the rosiness kind of accentuates the rosiness, but also kind of adds a bit more like oudy animalic depth. You still have the, the chypre qualities of the Portrait of a Lady with the patchouli, the incense, the raspberry, the amber and incense and all that good stuff. But the night is quite gorgeous. It's really, really nicely done by Dominique Ropion. Really nicely. I think if I was to pick an animalic oud fragrance, I would go with that. It's definitely one of the best. But I don't really tend to love to wear too many animalic fragrances. Musks are more my thing. But if I'm going to go with an oud, that would be definitely one of them. It's a very luxurious and very expensive smelling oud, even though it smells pretty... What's the word I used? All right, the next fragrance launched in 2014 is Eau de Magnolia. So I bought this last year because friends of mine stayed at a hotel that had Frederic Malle products, and it was the Eau de Magnolia product. And I was also in Greece, and I stayed in a hotel. They also had Frederic Malle product, and it was Eau de Magnolia. So I kind of got used to the smell. And I think it's a fresh magnolia fragrance. It's kind of creamy. It's slightly tropical, but not overly white floral. For me, I get a lemoniness from magnolia all the time, especially when it's baking under the sun. When you go really close to them, you can smell them. It's got this kind of a smell, but it's very fresh. This is such a fresh fragrance with that kind of floral effect. And smelling it now just takes me back to my hotel stay and utilizing the products in that hotel that were Eau de Magnolia. It's a really, really great magnolia fragrance. Absolutely love it. There's a slight spice in there, but it's very creamy smooth and very, very fresh. I'm assuming there's some citruses in there as well because it comes off very, very fresh. There's a juiciness about it. But let me know if you're a fan of Eau de Magnolia. Have you used those products? So next, we are going to a Bruno Jovanovic creation called Monsieur. Now, when this launched in 2015, so this is one of two fragrances launched in 2015. A lot of people were saying this was the male Portrait of a Lady. To me, they smell nothing alike. Absolutely nothing. Sure, it utilizes patchouli. Portrait of a Lady does as well. This to me is also a very medicinal patchouli. It's dark and smoky and bitter. There's not a lot of brightness. It's like this oily, greasy take on patchouli, dark and bitter, as I said. It's got medicinal vibes. You can smell the patchouli for sure, but they have given you the rawest form of patchouli. They have not cleaned it up. I've not smelled a patchouli fragrance like this anywhere else. It's just, they gave you the patchouli as is after they, distilled it or whatever they do to create it from the plants, and they didn't clean it up whatsoever. There's definitely a greasy quality about it, and it's just raw. So it kind of comes off slight bit animalic, even though I don't think there's any animalic notes, but it's almost like, I don't want to use the word incomplete because I think it's intentional, but I wouldn't wear this or layer it with Portrait of a Lady. I think the night would layer with it, but this is so different. Plus, it's made by a different perfumer, and I think I prefer the patchouli in other fragrances, but once in a while, it's an acquired taste. You might, you kind of want to smell that kind of medicinal smelling patchouli that's kind of greasy and things like that. So next we're going to a fragrance. Wait a minute, I think I got my... So we spoke about Monsieur. Oh, okay, here. Next we're going to a fragrance, another fragrance by Dominique Ropion called Cologne Indelible. Are you guys familiar with this one? These labels kind of get weird, as you can see. I don't know if that's the juice slipping down or spilling down that's causing that. But if you want a really robust take on that traditional eau de cologne style fragrance, you know, the Neroli, Portofino, and things like that, this is your jam right here. I thought this fragrance had launched much earlier, but it's 2015. I didn't even realize that. I thought it came out around the same time as Cologne Bigarade or Bigarade Concentree. But this launched in 2015, and it's so good, guys. Really, really awesome. And it's basically utilizing all of the orange, the bitter orange tree, but the neroli, the petitgrain, the orange blossom, and all that kind of stuff. The juiciness of the citruses. Sure, it might come off a bit like Bigarade Concentree, but the Bigarade Concentree is just the citrus fruit and other notes. There's no floral notes in there. This is all the flowers and the leaves as well, in addition to the fruit. But it's pretty potent for a citrus, although I'm not saying it's beast mode. It's not going to be like a room filler and all that good stuff. But I think Dominique did a great job. He just took basically one of the most popular formulas for fragrances that has been created from, you know, going back to like the 1700s, I think, with the first, you know, like 4711 and those fragrances, the Farina that created that fragrance. And, you know, modernizing it and amplifying it and intensifying it. So that's a really great fragrance. I really enjoy that. Then we have another Dominique Ropion creation. It's Promise. Promise is also really good. And also, I should say, the latest fragrance from the house is Hope. And Hope takes Promise into the oud direction and strips away the fruitiness and the rose from Promise. But Promise is good and boozy. There's Cypriol here. And that Cypriol smells like barrel aging. Liqueur and spirits macerating and, you know, aging in barrels. It's that kind of fragrance. It's so, so good for like booziness. But it's created with that Cypriol, which is awesome. It's like, if you like the smell of, like, if you walk into a distillery and they've got these barrels and wooden barrels and they're aging liquors and spirits and things like that, and that smell is nicely captured in Promise. It's really, really great. And I think if you think it's too much and you want some oudy substance, the two together are really great as well. Like wearing Promise and Hope together. It creates less, you know, booziness and, you know, intensifying the oudiness. But, you know, this fragrance by itself is so good. Promise is awesome. At one time, it was my favorite. It was also the least expensive. But, you know, I've started enjoying the Night a lot. And, of course, the Moon and all that good stuff. But still, Promise is quite delicious if you like boozy fragrances. Next, we have a fragrance that is created by an IFF perfumer. I think she's not with IFF anymore from what I heard. But this is Fanny Ball's Sale Gosse, and I believe she trained under Dominique Ropion. This is also somewhat fresh and kind of like cologne indelible. But this is a bit more playful and childlike. I think this translates to bratty kid, bratty child. Sale Gosse. I'm not 100% sure. I remember at one time, but I've forgotten. I think this has a bit of a bubblegummy effect. But it's interesting they've launched the two together, like two fragrances. Cologne Indelible in 2015, Sale Gosse in 2017. So 2 years apart, two perfumers who worked together at IFF, creating something similar. I've worn and spoken about Sale Gosse so much. I actually really love it. But it's a bit sweeter and a bit more smoother, but kind of prefer the sharpness of Cologne Indelible a little more. And sometimes I buy two similar fragrances and I'm like, oh, I like this one a little more. I'm talking about that one. But then I get tired of that one and I kind of go back to the one that I haven't been speaking about. So I'm kind of preferring that one a little more. But Sale Gosse is definitely a really fun fragrance if you haven't tried it, with a cool bottle as well. Let me know if you're a fan of that. So that came out in 2017. And then we're going to the second discontinued fragrance. This is also created by Dominique Ropion. This is Superstitious. And it's a collaboration with Albert Elbaz. I think it was a fashion designer, as you can see, the eye there. I grew up in a culture of superstitious things and the eye and all that good stuff. I actually really love this fragrance. It's Dominique Ropion. It's a dark, smoky, aldehydic rose fragrance. Oh my God, look at the juice color. My bottle has been sitting for a while. And I don't want to use up because I only have that bottle. It's so good. It's a lot of aldehydes for sure. It is really, really aldehydic. And even though aldehydes sometimes have this lift and floating kind of airiness, there's a lot of dense notes here that kind of like fights with one another. So it's pretty dense. It's a really dense fragrance. I think the incense in here is so super potent. And it kind of crosses out the rose a little bit, but this is so good. It's too bad it's discontinued. And I think since not the perfumer, but since Albert Elbaz died, I think that's when they discontinued the fragrance. So basically it was a collaboration. Let me know if you've gotten your nose on Superstitious. Add a comment below. So then we're going to two fragrances back to back created by Carlos Bonayem. Both of them are not my favorite fragrances from this house, and I'm a fan of Carlos Bonayem as a perfumer. He works at IFF. He created the OG Polo Green. That was probably one of his very first fragrances, but he's created so many others. These two are a bit underwhelming, especially Dawn. Dawn is in the Desert Gems collection. It's a dark, smoky, dusty oud fragrance. It's not as animalic as the Night, which I prefer, even though I'm not the hugest fan of a lot of oudy animalic ouds. I much prefer the Night over this. And perhaps you can layer these two as well and maybe balance it out as well. But I think they're so complex fragrances. And even though the Night is probably only like 4 or 5 different notes credited, I think they might clash. I'm finding that the oud in Dawn has some similarities to the oud in the Night. But there's a lot of resins and smokiness in that fragrance that if you layer the Night and Dawn together, it might clash or it might blend really well. And I think the reason I'm not as excited about Dawn as I am about the Night, I think I got bored of incense around the time this launched. I was a big fan of incense fragrances, big fan of Avignon and Full Incense and various other incense fragrances. I got bored of incense, and I think this came out around that time. I was not really appreciating incense. But it smells pretty good now, but it's not like a wow fragrance. Let me know if you're a fan of Dawn. Do you prefer Dawn over the Night? How about Music for a While? That's also Carlos Bonayem over at IFF. So it seems like Frederic Malle utilizes or used a lot of IFF perfumers because Dominique Ropion's IFF, Julian Rascanet, although Fanny Ball. But the rest of them are not. But Music for a While is a strange combo of notes. Pineapple and lavender. I mean, this to me is a pineapple version of Monsieur for some reason. There's a bitter greasiness with this one as well. But I'm liking it more now. It's been a while since I've put my nose on it. And the pineapple is super strong. There's a bitterness with pineapple. I'm sorry, not pineapple. The lavender is super strong in this. And there's a bitterness with lavender as well, especially if you've ever bought the oil from the south of France. If you like smell the lavender so long, you can start smelling its bitterness. And here I'm kind of getting it quite a bit. I think on the skin, the pineapple appears more. But I love lavender in general. I'm a big fan of lavender. One of my favorite, herbs. And sometimes it's also consumed, like they add a nice light layer of like, let's say like lavender in vanilla ice cream or some kind of like a creme brulee, topped with like a little sprinkling of lavender. I like it in places like that. And I love fougere. So this to me acts a bit like a fougere. But again, it gives me that very concentrated, greasy vibe that I got from Miss You. Let me know if you're a fan of music for a while. Let's move on to the next fragrance. And this year of the launch of two fragrances just before the pandemic were both really, really great fragrances. First of which is a Jean-Claude Ellena fragrance, Rose and Queer. Really awesome fragrance. This is so good. And this time, they're utilizing geranium again, and they are bringing out its rosiness. This is Rose and Queer, but it's supposed to be rose and leather. But there's no rose used in this fragrance. It's all from the geranium. And geranium has rosy characteristics. And also, excuse me, geranium has rosy characteristics and also minty. So you're getting both of those here. And even though I was complaining about geranium Paul Monsieur, I don't care for that. Here, I love the mintiness and the rosiness of the geranium. It's really great. It's also very vegetal and green. And eventually it settles to a leather, which I think definitely a great fragrance created by Jean-Claude Ellena. It definitely has a signature, for sure. He actually edits his notes quite well. He doesn't overwhelm, is what I'm saying. It's a bit simplistic. And the fact that you're using a note to create all these different things, bring out different smells from it, is actually pretty genius. So that's a really awesome fragrance, Rose and Queer. I've worn quite a bit of that one. And then, of course, I mentioned I wore quite a bit of this one, too. The Moon by Frederic Malle, created by Julian Rascanet. This is my second bottle, although I wore my first one all the way, 50 mLs, quite a bit of it. And this one, actually, I haven't worn a lot of. I'm holding on to it. This is so good. I think it's a really awesome creation by Julian Rascanet, but definitely Middle Eastern style. You can smell the oils of the fruits in here. And even though it seems like it could be a really dense fragrance, there's an airiness about it. It makes for the oud to be easier to be worn. I think this one also has rose, but the fruits stand out more to me. There's an ambery effect in the dry down. And it has a bit of that Middle Eastern twist to a lot of the Desert Gems fragrances, because it has to. But to me, this is very, very modern. At one time, I really loved Promise. When this came out, I got obsessed with it, wore 50 mils of it, and then I have this 100 ml bottle now, and I'll cherish it because I'll come back to it. But I think Julian did such an awesome job on this fragrance. It's definitely one of the best from Frederic Malle. There's so many good fragrances in this house. It's tough to create a top 10 or top 12, but there's a lot of videos on the channel. If you haven't caught any of my videos on the House of Frederic Malle, please tune in to catch those videos. And again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe by clicking the subscribe button below. And also click the bell icon so you'll be notified for future videos. And please give a thumbs up for this video. So let's move on to Synthetic Nature. Okay, it was launched as Synthetic Jungle. So this was another issue that came up. So they had to change the name. I don't know why, but I was obsessed with this fragrance. I think it launched in 2021. I wore so much of. I even have a bottle at home. Here is this one. It's used up quite a bit. And then, of course, Synthetic Nature. Do they smell different? I think they're very similar to me. But Synthetic Nature, to me, is kind of tomato leafy. It's got similarities to L'Ambre dans l'Eau by Diptyque. A little bit similarities to Eau de Campagne from Sisley. Maybe Malamata from Rus and Rus, which we featured in our Scent Club kits. But the potency and intensity of this fragrance just makes this fragrance #1. I absolutely love this. So green, vegetal. It's almost like vegetation being cut up. And they're so fragrant you can smell them. There's also green floral notes in here. Lily of the Valley. But even though they don't mention the tomato leaves, I get tomato leaves from this one. Do you guys get that? It's a great fragrance created by Anne Filippo. It's so good. She did such a great job on this. I don't like a lot of her designer fragrance creations, but her niche offerings are awesome. So good. Let me know if you're a fan of Synthetic Nature, which used to be Synthetic Jungle. Add a comment below. Then we have a disappointing fragrance called Uncut Gem from perfumer Maurice Roussel. This launched in 2022. This was just around the time when people were getting back out in the world after the pandemic. And I thought this was... okay, I think it's a quality fragrance, but the price point of it is too high. I don't think it's deserving of that price point. Apparently, this is also the fragrance that Maurice Roussel was wearing without, you know, releasing it. But I guess it kind of got released by Frederic Malle because they're friends or something. It's quite peppery and spicy. I think it's not exciting. I think it's an easy fragrance for somebody looking for something spicy, peppery, woody. It's supposed to have musk as well. I think that's what Maurice Roussel is obsessed with. But I mentioned in my review, I said this would be great in a, you know, like a signature collection fragrance for Cartier, but not a Frederic Malle $400 bottle fragrance. I don't think it's bad, but it's not, I don't think it's worth it. I bought it to speak about it on the channel, and I'm a collector, but I'm telling you guys honestly, I think it's not a wow fragrance. For me, his wow fragrance is the first fragrance I spoke about, Musc Ravageur. And even though it's reformulated and not as musky as it used to be, I think it still smells great. But let's move on to Jean-Claude Elena creation called Heaven Can Wait. I also complained about this one, but I complained about the longevity. I actually really love the way it smells. It just goes down so fast because it doesn't last on me. There's clove spice in here, which I love. And again, it's not such an exciting fragrance like the other fragrances he's created, and it's total Jean-Claude Elena. There are some vegetal touches in here as well. Very powdery, but there's that warmth with the cloves that I like. I like the way it smells, not anything, ooh, that's so amazing kind of, but I like it. But for me, on me, it just didn't last. It was disappointing. It just faded away really fast. But what do you guys think about Heaven Can Wait? Out of all of the fragrances that Jean-Claude Elena has created for Frederic Malle, which is your favorite? Is it this one? Is it Bigarade Concentree? Is it, there's so many. I'm forgetting a lot of them. But there's, where is it? L'Odive is definitely one of them. I actually prefer L'Odive over Heaven Can Wait. Heaven Can Wait also reminds me of a fragrance by Kilian. Well, they are under Estee Lauder, so last year they launched 2 fragrances, and Acne Studios is one of them. And boy, a lot of people complained about this fragrance and the name, but I guess they didn't realize Acne Studios is a fashion house. This, just like the collaboration with Dries Van Noten, is a fashion house collaboration. Same thing with Albert Elbaz. So, do you think this is also going to get pulled? Because I have a feeling if Acne Studios gets out there more and gets more popular, they'll eventually want to launch their own fragrances. So this will get pulled as well. Because it's happened already twice. So this is the only fashion collaboration they have right now. The other 2 are discontinued. But this is created by Suzy Laheli. Her name is not on here. What the heck? But this is an aldehydic balm. Clean laundry, clean linens, clean white shirt. It's very fizzy, effervescent. There's a slight smokiness in there, but it's a very clean fragrance created with aldehydes. It's just an aldehyde balm. Does it remind of Blanche by Byredo? Well, they were under the same parent company at one time. Does it remind you of Couleur Premiere from the house of Les Eaux Primordiales? They're kind of in that ballpark. There's also Chanel number 22, which is also aldehydic. It's aldehydes. It'll be familiar smelling when you go from one to the other, but they're not identical. Do you love Acne Studios? Do you hate the name? Do you know the fashion brand Acne Studios? Add a comment below so we can find out. And then the last fragrance that launched, the last original fragrance that launched at Frederic Malle is Hope. So I did a video on this. I wasn't going to get it, but it grew on me as I got a bunch of samples and I was wearing them. And this is the least animalic oud in the collection. Well, actually, I should say the Moon is also not animalic. But when I was wearing this, it kept reminding me of Promise. So I kind of wanted more from that. Does that make sense? So I feel like Dominique Ropillon, who created this by pretty much using the same formula as Promise and stripping away some stuff and adding oud to it. I think that's kind of how it is. Because behind all the oud, which is not animalic, by the way, there is the reminder of Promise. But it's there, hiding. You can kind of get a glimpse of it, but it's not in your face. So the opposite of that is Promise. So you can layer these two fragrances. So you have an oudy take on Promise, because for me, I feel like I said, the formula is kind of similar, turned around with an oud addition. And so the fact that I can pick up the idea of Promise in here, I can layer the two and get a nice balance of Promise with an oud effect. Does that make sense? I think it's solid, even though I kind of didn't like it at first. The samples grew on me, so I ended up with the bottle. I got it also at a deal. So I won't say my deal, but it was in Europe. I was, shopping, and there was a promotion happening, and I took advantage of it. So that's the last fragrance. That is Hope by Frederic Malle. 37 fragrances. Am I missing anything? I don't think I am. Again, as I said, I'm not including the hair perfumes, any of the limited edition perfumes. I never bought the 15th anniversary Portrait of a Lady fragrance that came out this year. And last I checked, they still had bottles at Neiman Marcus here. Should I get it? Did you guys get it? Is it different? But honestly, out of all the fragrances, it's all about Portrait of a Lady here. This is what put the brand on the map, I think. It's one of the best fragrances ever created. Created by one of my favorite perfumers for one of my favorite brands. And that's Portrait of a Lady. So if you had to rank the list, I'm not going to rank the list. Maybe I'll do a ranked list later. We'll see what's coming out this year. I think they will launch something probably in the fall. I'm curious to see what they launch. But maybe after that launch, I'll do a 100% ranked list of all of the fragrances. This video is chronological, obviously. But let me know your favorite fragrances from the House of Frederic Malle. Add a comment below. And yeah, I appreciate you tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, guys, please list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.